Ladies and gentlemen, the Regina Curry. I am so glad that you're here. Well, candidly, little selfish endeavor for me. If there were ever a topic of conversation that I've been excited about, this is at the top of the list. For anybody listening, Regina has an awesome background and an awesome personality. So I'm going to try to kind of encapsulate who you are with a little bit of an intro here. Over 20 years of professional counseling experience. You are a therapist, you're a coach, you are a assistant athletic director, you're a sports psychologist, you're a parenting expert, and so many other things. And if there were ever passions of mine outside of, marketing and personal development and things like that, it would be athletics, parenting, and psychology. So I am so glad that you're here.
Yes.
I would love to get us started because I think, especially knowing that we've got 20 years of great experience, and I've had the privilege of seeing you speak in different settings and, learn about what you do from that perspective. And one of my favorite things about you is that your passion for your work exudes you. It's obvious how much you enjoy what you do. I would love to hear how you got into this field and, kind of the background and the story for what brought you to Fort Lewis and your private practice and all of the things that you do, because it's just such a cool field that you're in.
Thanks, Ben. Well, I feel like I am in the presence of greatness because you just finished a 100-mile race. So this is something that I think is near and dear to both of our hearts. The psychology piece, the participating a life fully piece, the challenging ourselves portion of it, and then really showing up, I think, fully in life. I started out as a counselor. It's actually not my first career. I started out in architecture. That's what my first degrees are in. Yes. And after a few years of doing that, I had a great career in that. But after a few years, I really got honest with myself about, okay, look, if I just did exactly what I wanted to do, and I wasn't worried about paying off my school loans, just really what my passion was, what would I do? And it was spot on. I wanted to be a track coach, a cross-country and track coach, and a school counselor. I never would have gone to college if I had not had my high school counselor. He saw something great in me. I wasn't an incredible student. I wasn't blowing anybody's mind on the athletic front at the time. But he saw something in me, and he's like, hey, kid, you got something. And really invited me into my own greatness. And I had a couple of high school teachers that saw the same thing, and they invited me into these opportunities. And I basically just said yes. And so when I thought about the work that I wanted to do, I wanted to give that back to people that also needed to be seen. I knew that that was one of my gifts, was just sort of honing in on people's uniqueness, their specialness. Didn't matter what they were doing. They could be they could be profound underachievers, but our behavior is not who we are. And so I had people that saw my greatness, and I really wanted to make a life out of seeing other people's greatness, and I really feel like that's what I've done.
Already about 100 questions just from that.
Yes.
Inviting into greatness. What an interesting way of describing it. And you also mentioned that our behavior is not who we are. Is everybody capable of greatness?
I'd like to think so. I don't think I could do the work that I do if I didn't think that everybody could be a truer, more honest, more authentic version of who they are. I mean, if you think of any addict, any person that's struggling with anything, right? And we've all been there. Everyone has struggled with something. Our behavior is not who we are. Our actions are not who we are. Not all the time. And so at that time that I met my school counselor, at the time that I met my high school gym teacher who said, hey, I think you're a pretty fast runner. You should be on the cross country team. Right? I wasn't doing anything exceptional. I don't even think I was doing anything mediocre. But they saw something in me. And because they did, I started seeing something in me. I started showing up for opportunities. And just like you training for your race, right? You run a few miles and then you're like, hey, that wasn't so bad. I think I could do a few more next week or tomorrow, right? And so when people believe in us before we believe in us, then we start to believe in us and we can achieve great things. Whatever those great things are, it looks different for everyone. And so, like I said, that is really how my journey started. And I had several people along my journey that invited me into opportunities that spoke to my strengths and really challenged me in a way that led me to, I think, have my own back, to start doing things that I didn't think I was capable of.
Believing in yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so simple, but it's not easy. It is not an easy thing. I mean, as you know, you're parenting, you're running your own business, you're running races. Like, there are days where you are like, you're just showing up to apologize,
I was
right?
going to say, and I have no idea what I'm doing on any of them.
I don't know what I'm doing, right? And so to have somebody that says, hey, I know you can do this. And it's not because you're already doing it. It's just that they see that in you. I really feel like that's what I do every single day. And I'm not blowing smoke. I mean, truly, I just feel like one of my gifts is that I see people and I feel like they feel seen by me, and then we're able to do incredible things.
Is that because I want to learn more about that from your perspective? And I failed to mention in your intro that you're also a Division I and Ivy League college athlete. Yes. So you've obviously had, these life experiences that have proven to you these concepts of self-belief and, internal greatness and all these things we've already kind of touched on. When it comes to your role now, though, as a professional, I'm curious how that relationship develops from somebody believing in themselves versus somebody having someone believe in them, like from your perspective, how you navigate that. Because one of the things, a lot of my audience doesn't have the luxury of a sports psychologist on staff and, playing at the collegiate level. So what I'm trying to get at is, from that self-belief perspective, your advice to people on how they can develop some self-belief, or, ways that it can become cultivated and grown from your experience. Where does self-belief come from?
So it's super simple, but it's not easy. So confidence is the payoff. That is the reward for having courage, for showing up to these things in life that are inherently hard and we don't know how to do. So for me, I joined a sports team and I wasn't any good, but I kept showing up. I had the courage to show up to the first practice. And then I showed up to the next practice and I wanted to quit, but I kept showing up. And maybe I was too afraid to quit at the time, because I definitely remember wanting to quit. But it was equal parts people believing in me and wanting to be there, and then having the courage to just sort of stick with something because there was something in me that felt like this was a good thing. And I believe any time that we stretch ourselves, we do build that confidence. A lot of the time, people get the message that you need to be confident before you start something. That's not how it works. You show up courageously, and confidence is the payoff for that continued showing up. Think about when you had your first kid. You had no idea, but this thing was coming and you were going to do it, right? And after a while, you're sort of like, well, I know how to keep a person alive. And there's that confidence because you've done it over and over. It hasn't always been pretty. It's been flawed. It's been messy. But you've done it. So you start to believe that you are someone that can do these challenging and difficult things. And that feels good. The psyche loves that. That is a hit of dopamine, right? When we do something that we weren't sure that we were able to do, and it actually turned out okay. Maybe not great, but okay. And that gives us the courage to do something a little harder or a little longer or a little bit more. And it's doing that over and over and over again. That's what every athlete does. No one starts out great at a sport, even if you have an affinity for that sport, maybe a natural talent, right? Nobody starts out Olympic level or pro. You just keep showing up day after day. And after a while, you feel like, hey, I know how to do this thing. Pretty good at this, right? And that lays the foundation for you doing harder things, maybe branching out into other sports, doing things that you didn't think you could do, hopping on a travel team, whatever. It looks different for everyone. But that really is the story for most of us on just about anything that we do.
Love that. Confidence is the reward of having the courage to show up.
To show up, that's it.
What a great philosophy. What a great statement. Confidence is the reward for having the courage to show up.
Truly.
Oh, I love that.
And so when student athletes come in, or even my private clients, coaching clients or therapy clients, they come in and they're like, how do I do this thing? How do I get good at this thing? How do I have the confidence? And undoubtedly, they've already been successful in many other things in their lives. And so I remind them of that accomplishment. Well, how'd you get good at baseball? Well, I just kept showing up. I just kept doing it. Okay. Well, how do you think you're going to get good at being a partner, a friend, a worker, right? An adventurer. What do you have? Business owner, like all the things, right? And then I remind them that you probably weren't amazing all the time. Like I'm guessing you've lost a game or two, or you didn't make every team you tried out for, and they're like, yeah, of course, right? Well, that's exactly what life is like. And so when we remind people of their success, that hey, when the very worst thing that they thought could happen has likely already happened, they got dumped, they didn't make the team, it didn't work out, they were embarrassed, but they overcame that. Then we have the courage to show up to those other things. We're not so afraid because, heck, we've made it through something like that before, which leads to deeper and deeper levels of confidence.
It's so funny. You saw me on, I think it was last Wednesday. I was emceeing the Schuyler's Award banquet.
You did great.
And they're playing the video beforehand, and I was standing there. Yeah, I knew I was up after the video, and Angela came up to me and was like, you're up after this. And I was like, I know. And she was giving me a hard time that I was being, I was being pretty casual about it. And I was telling my wife that story afterwards, and I was like, but after you run 100 miles, it didn't feel that scary. And exactly. I love that idea that athletics and sports can teach you those practices that you can then apply in life. Like the courage to show up and compete on the field or in the court or on the track or wherever it might be over and over again. And now knowing that confidence is the reward from that. Do you ever interact with your clients or your students about how the lessons learned? Because one of my favorite things about athletics is the parallels to life. The lesson, I played college football at I was a subpar collegiate athlete, but I did it.
You did it.
But, I tell people all the time, I learned so many lessons off the field. I learned on the field. And now in my life, this stage of my life, running is this incredible parallel with all of life's adversity. And I'm sure we'll dive into that. But I'm curious, when you're talking with clients or athletes that are sort of struggling, do you usually refer to it in the context of athletics, or are you having larger conversations about that, this could translate? Or do you know, though, that if they focus on athletics, that eventually it will? What does that dynamic look like?
So athletics, I'm going to say that everything that I learned in life came from running. I mean, it just built who I am as a human. As you know, running, a lot of it is just a grind. You're just thugging it out. Sounds
like life.
When you're training for a marathon or a half marathon or a 100-miler or even a 5K, a lot of the work is unglamorous. It's just grunt work. And so when we think about life and we think about things that have a really big reward but are somewhat unglamorous, let's talk about like investing in our 401k, right? Let's talk about getting training for this job or this career that we want to have. It's pretty uneventful. It's not sexy. It's not flashy. But athletes are really skilled in doing that repetitive work that lays the foundation for greater things later on. And so a lot of the work that I do is reminding them of how they're already really skilled at doing this thing.
At showing up.
That they can transfer into other areas of their lives. Not every relationship is going to be just incredible all the time. There are going to be times where we love our partner, but we don't like them, right? And so that's what sports is like for us. We love our sport, but I don't want to go to practice today. I don't want to lift weights. I don't want to eat well. But we do. We do because we know that it's a good choice for us, and it's ultimately going to get us where we want to go, and we believe in us. And when we trust ourselves to stick with the relationship, to stick with the practice, to stick with the things that are hard, again, that builds that confidence because we had the courage to stick with a program that we know actually works.
Yeah. One of the things I'm excited about lately is that I feel like there's been a great shift in removing stigmas as it relates to mental health across the board. I think back to, who was the gymnast, the Olympic gymnast?
I'm seeing her. Seeing her right now.
And now I'm gonna.
And now we're
the second we stop.
it. Yes.
But who bowed out because of some mental health, or at the beginning of the Olympics. We'll remember the second we're done. I'm sure.
Yep.
Someday I'll have like a producer that's googling stuff for us in the
Exactly.
back. But examples like that of where the worlds of athletics and mental health are colliding, and simultaneously, I feel like we have this sort of societal shift with removal of the stigma, of mental health, which I think is refreshing. One of the things, I think it's almost comical, but in a kind way, when we're running ultras, one of my favorite things about running ultras is the friends I make. I've made some lifelong friends running ultra marathons. And it's like common practice to meet somebody for the first time and like dive deep about life, love, the pursuit of happiness, mental health struggles. I mean, you name it. Everybody's out there like sharing their darkest secrets and everything. It's beautiful. Yes. And I, in the ultra world, it's definitely, there's kind of a spotlight on it in the ultra world. I'm curious, especially because I haven't been in college athletics in so long, but are you seeing a similar shift in terms of the destigmatization of mental health with collegiate level athletes? And then my follow-up question would be, with your experience, are there common mental health struggles that athletes have that you kind of can, people struggle with sort of similar things, or is it kind of across the board?
Simone Biles is who we were
Simone Biles.
Yes,
Thank
so there
you.
we go.
That would have bugged us the whole time.
Simone, so
she's probably listening. So Simone, I'm sorry.
Exactly. Yes. Our condolences.
We're like this giant famous
we
podcast.
Apologize.
So when Simone sees it, we'll apologize.
We'll send her like a fruit basket.
Yeah,
or something.
I'll have her on.
Yes. Yeah. So going back to your original question, which was
destigmatization of mental health in collegiate collegiate sports specifically.
Truly. So I think across the board, there's been a greater focus on this. I was at the NCAA conference in Phoenix in January, and mental health is at the forefront of the work that every college athletics program is looking to do because it is so important. If we are not mentally strong, there's no way physically we can show up. You know this from the 100-mile race that you did. It's more mental than it is physical. The body can do incredible things. It's the mind that gets you, right? And so we know that it's super important to build up our athletes in this way, and yet not every coach has this training. Not every coach got into coaching to do this work. Mm-hmm. So I will say that at Fort Lewis, we have an incredible staff of coaches who are interested in doing this work. We do professional development at least once a month where I am teaching them a lot of what I know, because here is what I know for sure. This great information, the ability to see and help and recognize others, isn't something that I want to keep to myself. I do not have the monopoly on mental health. And so I really am passionate about sharing this information with coaches and all athletic staff so that any one of us can meet their needs. Now, I am a licensed therapist and counselor, so I'm gonna have like my skills are going to be different than that of most coaches. But it is my greatest hope that every single one of them can have an authentic connection. And just like you said, when you are meeting people that you're running with for the first time, kind of go deep. See them. Get to a place that's real, that lets people know that you care, that you're championing them. Now, when we get into the real big stuff, somebody isn't going to, even if you're running, they're not going to ask you to like counsel them. But there is something magical that happens when they share something with you and you can receive that and hold space for it. Yeah. And honestly, people just listening and just valuing what you're saying, that's like 95% of it.
Yeah.
People don't need advice. People are really good at solving their own problems when they get a little bit of airspace to sort of explore what's going on for them. Nobody knows people better than themselves. I mean, Ben, you've been with you the longest.
Right.
Even with all of my credentials and all of my learning, I cannot give you a better plan for your life than you can. Now, I can be your thinking partner. I can be your I can help you get
A space to explore it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I can help you get to your truest answers as your thinking partner, as your support, but I can't do the work for you, right? No one can run the race for you. And so my job is not to give advice at all. In fact, I never give advice. I really am a partner and a guide with a student, with a client, with a coach, because I am the therapist for athletes and for coaches, to really have them explore their own thinking and come to their own great answers about what's going to work for them. And as you know, when we come to our own great thinking, we are committed to that thinking. That's our idea. So when we are successful with that plan that we have, that we've identified for ourselves, we are so proud when we nail it. And when things don't work out the way that we want them to, we're committed to figuring out what could be better. We're like, okay, that was a good start, but didn't quite get it on that one. What do I need to do differently next time? And so even when it doesn't work out the way that we wanted to, we are motivated to stick with it and sort of explore it in a way that if someone gives you that idea, you're just not attached to it. Yeah, you're not attached to it in the same way. It's not your thing.
Do you think, and I want to come back to just like trends or commonalities in collegiate athletes and mental health struggles, but you brought up another question, kind of this idea of self-exploration and, athletics and mental health and things like that. Do you think that exercise is an underutilized tool to address mental health?
Without question. The research tells us that exercise is actually more effective than any sort of antidepressant. Now, antidepressants can help. They are helpful for a certain portion of the population, but a lot of people experience the exact same benefits, if not even greater benefit, without medication and getting outdoors and sweating, challenging themselves. Right? That can really be instrumental in getting people out of a funk. Okay. Now, we're not talking like clinical depression right here. We're talking about low grade, hey, I am not feeling like myself, but even clinical depression. There is plenty of research that supports that exercise is a powerful component to someone's mental health. I did not answer your first question, though. I didn't answer your first two questions that you were asking me about.
It's because I made them hard to answer. Right? They were long-winded.
You asked, have we destigmatized mental health supports in athletics? And I'm going to say at Fort Lewis, I really believe that we have made huge gains in that department. I remember when you came and you spoke at our life skills session, and you talked about how you've been so successful in your business because of the relationships that you have. Now, I work a proactive model, which means every single year, I meet with every single athlete at least once. And if you are a freshman or you are a transfer student to Fort Lewis, we have a one-on-one session before the school year even starts.
Wow.
Which means there's no one in athletics who has not met me, who knows that I care about them and I am here for them, and this is the work that I do, and this is my joy and my honor to be with you and hear your ideas about something. So right there, that relationship is built. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, it might be 30 minutes. But they know that someone has taken the time to get to know them and ask them about who they are. And so when life gets real, which it will because it's life.
Inevitable.
And it's weird and it's messy, there's already a connection there. They know who I am. They know where my office is. They know what my skills are. They know what I provide to the college and what I provide to them. And so it's not so hard to come in. It's still hard for any of us to get the help that we need. I'm terrible at asking for help. And so knowing that, I really tried to work out, well, what would make it easier? Access. So every single person has my cell phone number. Every single person can get a hold of me when they need to get a hold of me. Every coach knows how to get a hold of me. Students have access to my calendar, so they can just put themselves on there whenever they need to talk. They can talk, they can text, they can do all the things, right? So I'm really accessible. They know they can swing by my office and ask when I have an appointment available, but they also know how to do that on their own. And then I go into the weight room at least a couple times a month, and I meet with every single team to talk about mental health topics. And there's this great saying in psychology, you want to name it to tame it. And so I talk about the insecurities that they have. And certainly anxiety and depression are the things that student athletes, and I think athletes in general, battle with most, as well as imposter syndrome, which is a facet of that. And so when I tell them, hey, I'm guessing you might be struggling with this, or you might not feel like you have a problem, you're just not feeling like yourself. What do we do when we're just feeling kind of, right? And I invite them to come in and talk about that. Or I say, hey, maybe you are just killing it in life. Like things are amazing for you. But it can feel hard to share success. I mean, that's one of the things that's really hard to do is to go to our friends and family and be like, I did this amazing thing. People aren't always happy for us, but we need people to champion us and cheer for us. And so I invite them to come in and share those things. So people come in to talk about everything. Yeah. And I think they feel comfortable doing that because there are so many points of connection. I'm in the weight room. I'm around campus. I'm going to their games. I am providing professional development with coaches. I'm meeting with them one-on-one. So there are so many points of contact where it isn't this like, who is Regina and how do we make an appointment with her? It's, I know her. I know she cares about me. I know she loves me. I saw her 16 times already today. She high-fived me. She gave me a hug. Things are a little crazy right now. I'm going to make an appointment.
It's so cool. I think back, I mean, you just think about how amazingly that has progressed. I think back to when I played college, when I played football at Fort Lewis, and specifically I remember at summer camp, and that's when, so, you know, I'm a freshman, my parents dropped me off, I didn't have a car, I don't even think we had internet, maybe we had internet, but, you know, a flip phone, I knew nobody. We were doing 2 and 3 practices a day with a lift and, you know, living in the dorm, which was, you know, its own environment that is what it was. And I remember that month was like so trying. I mean, I remember from a mental health perspective of like, this is brutal. Just, I'm in a new place with new people, learning new things. I'm way out of my comfort zone. I barely deserve to be here in the first place. And, you know, things evolve and you make friends and whatever. And, you know, we probably coped in plenty of unhealthy ways too at the time. In fact, we for sure did. So it's cool to see. I just think it's so, I applaud that. I am such a giant advocate for that, for people to be able to deal with the struggles and the stressors of life in as healthy of a way as possible. And I know it's not a perfect science, but having somebody like you available, I mean, even at the Schuyler's banquet, they talked about, I forget what the terminology for it, but basically teams that were like having a dry season and things like that. It's just, I mean, when I played, there was nothing like that. And we all struggled quietly, but I think we all struggled. And that's one of the things that ultra running has taught me is that every single human being, literally every single human being is going through something. Everybody fights battles more than we have any clue. And understanding that has helped me live with empathy and patience and love and compassion. It's like you just want to give everybody these giant hugs and love on each other because we're all just fighting battles. And I think what a refreshing perspective to be able to remove the stigma from that and like own it and then deal with it. Because that, you know, with dealing with it is growth. I just think it's so cool that now we've progressed to the point that there's even a position like you, and then obviously how lucky they are to have you as well.
Thank you, Ben. You said it. It is. I can feel your enthusiasm. I can feel your passion for it because it is something that if you were a student athlete, and honestly, if you're just a person on the planet, like we all want to know that we're not alone. We want to feel connected. We want to feel loved. We want to feel like we belong. And we also don't want to feel like the odd person who just doesn't have this thing figured out and it's just an us problem. So a lot of the work that I do is normalizing things, letting people know that, hey, we've all, just like you said, we've all got something. And by normalizing it, people feel so included. They feel supported. Us just feeling like we're not alone, that's like more than half the battle right there. You know this from running. When you are with someone and you are both talking about how like your hips or your knees hurt, your hips and your knees still hurt. But knowing that somebody is experiencing that with you and that they're still moving forward, makes you feel like you can move forward. It makes you feel like you want to keep moving forward and that you want to encourage them and they in part want to encourage you. And it's this beautiful dance of, like you said, people loving on each other, people supporting each other. I feel like that is the work that we do in athletics. I feel like that's the work that I've done, and that's the work that I've invited other people to do. And every coach has been an athlete at some time, and they have all wanted to quit their sport. They've all wanted to give up. They have all hated their sport. That's just how it goes when you've been doing it for that long. And so to be honest about that, and then to be able to lean on each other, and then to be able to share that with a student athlete, not so that we're so much sharing their story, but just saying, hey, I honor your story because I've had that story myself too. Makes them feel like they can continue. It makes them feel like they're not alone, and they're not alone. We just feel like we're alone because we all want to act tough and we don't want to struggle. But struggle is something that is part of the human condition. And athletics isn't athletics without the struggle. It's actually the thing that makes it great. If it was easy, everybody be doing it.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we think that struggling it means that we're doing something wrong. It means that we're flawed or we're just not good enough. We can't quite hack it at that level. No, struggle is often an identifying factor that we're doing it right. It's hard because it's hard. We're pushing ourselves and challenging ourselves, and that is inherently stressful, but it is a stress that can be beneficial to us because it is laying the foundation for us to be strong in other areas of our lives that are going to require more from us than we think we have right now.
I love that. I've reflected sometimes and wondered if the increase in mental health struggles is related to the increase in comfort. Generally speaking, I mean, this is speculative only, but human beings, we've been uncomfortable far longer than we've been this comfortable. And then you look at the progression of our comforts, and they've been rapid the last couple decades. We're to the point now, if you don't want to struggle ever, you could. You could always be comfortable. You could turn on the AC. You could get your stuff your meals delivered. The whole thing. Somehow through struggle is where I find the greatest fulfillment as well. That was so profound. What you said is that struggle is the point.
Yes.
And I think that translates so far beyond athletics. Like if I think back to my life, the most meaningful moments have come through the most difficult. Quitting my corporate job, you talk about a struggle. That was terrifying. Having kids, moving.
Not for the me.
Running a 100-miler, whatever it might be.
Getting married.
Yeah. So how interesting to be able to reframe struggle and difficulty as like this necessary gate almost to, I don't know if fulfillment's the right word or whatever, but that it helps you deal with those struggles because of it's like the point. The foundation of it is the struggle. How cool is that?
The thing, if you think about climbing a mountain, so last summer I hiked Everest. I hiked the base camp of Everest. And I think I got up to 18,500, 19,000 feet, that sort of thing, right, to base camp. And it was incredible. And it was days of hiking. And it was hard. Being at that elevation, but hard is the thing that made getting to the base camp so special. Mm-hmm. You don't feel that way going out on a walk in your neighborhood. That's great. It's great for your health. It's awesome, right? The dogs love it.
Never going to downplay walking.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a different type of challenge. If you have ever fought with your wife, which I know you have, right? It feels so good to come together after that because it was hard and you were willing to hang with it. Everything in life is that way. Now, we don't need to invite struggle. Life has got plenty of struggle for us. We don't have to go looking for problems, right? But knowing that we are the kind of people that can address problems head on, that we can work through them, that we can successfully handle life, that builds a very different kind of person.
Mm-hmm. So you said, sorry, finish your thought.
Social media is I don't want to poo-poo social media. It's a great thing for a lot of people. But social media is something that makes this idea of struggle inherently hard because you don't see people struggle a whole lot on social media.
It's just a highlight reel.
Yeah, you see the curated version. Everybody's looking good and getting along. And that isn't how life is, but that's what we're led to believe life is. And so when we get out and experience life and own it for what it is, the beautiful, tragic, heart-wrenching, glorious, amazing, just colorful kaleidoscope that it is, we recognize that it's a beautiful gift. It's a beautiful gift, but it's hard. But that is the gift.
Yeah. So you mentioned like not inviting struggle, and I agree 100%. Life's going to be hard enough as is. We got enough challenges. We don't need to create our own. But you also talked about this idea of that confidence is a reward of having the courage of showing up. I would add to that, and doing hard things. So I'm curious, two-part question. One is, would you encourage people to do hard things, to find, challenges to overcome? And secondly, does doing hard things intentionally, like running 100 miles or emceeing an award banquet or whatever, does that translate then, that confidence that you build from having the courage to show up, does that impact real life? Like, can you learn lessons through intentional hard things that then you can apply when the inevitable, truly difficult things in life happen?
Yes. I think it's important for us to engage in something that is challenging every single day. Not every challenge has to be extreme, okay? It can be saying hi to a coworker that you don't particularly like. That is challenging, right? Because it's easy to just not. It can be challenging to be kind to your kids when they're working your last nerve, right? But when we show up in these ways, we do build that confidence that, like, hey, I'm a nice person. I can still be kind to everyone, even when I'm not feeling particularly pleasant. And that sets the foundation for doing harder things along the way. We often think that we're going to show up really big in life when just the stakes are super high and all eyes are on us, and we've had no training doing the small things. It doesn't work like that. It's just like building a muscle. Doing a lot of little hard things builds a muscle so we can do those sporadic, really, really challenging things that rips our heart out, and are just gut-wrenching. Life, hopefully for most of us, is not full of those things.
Right.
But if you're on the planet long enough, someone's going to die.
Yep.
Your heart's going to get broken. Something's not going to work out the way that you wanted it to. And by doing a lot of hard things along the way, challenging yourself in little ways that matter to you. Okay, that's the important thing. If we're just doing hard things to do hard things, that doesn't build the same level of self-satisfaction because we're not so invested in it. It's just a grind. So you and I were talking the other day about Toastmasters, and I'd mentioned that I didn't feel like I was a particularly great speaker. I didn't feel skilled in that area. It was an area that I wanted to be better in, but I also didn't want to get in front of people and risk looking like I didn't know what I was doing. And so that was something that was important to me. It was really challenging. I didn't want to show up to do Toastmasters, but I knew that I wasn't going to get any better at this public speaking thing if I didn't actually go out and publicly speak. And so I challenged myself to do that for 6 months. I stuck with it every Friday morning. And it was hard. I did not love it every day. But every day I did it, I felt really proud of myself. I just remember thinking, I do not want to go to this thing on Friday mornings. But every moment, every Friday when I was done, I just felt like I had done something huge, and I had. I wouldn't have felt that way if I was training for something that just is not my thing. Basketball. Okay, I love our women's basketball team. I'm not a basketball player. If I joined a basketball rec league, it would just not be fun for me.
Right.
That is just not my thing. So that sort of challenge wouldn't manifest in my life the same way that the public speaking did, because that's something that's inherently meaningful to me. So it's important that we've got we've got a stake in what we're doing.
And it doesn't have to be physical, it sounds like.
Nope.
You need to do things that challenge you, that are difficult, but it doesn't have to be running 100 miles. It could be going to Toastmasters.
Truly.
Making the call you don't want to make. Making your bed, whatever.
Trying a new recipe.
Got it. How cool. So we need to just intentionally do things. I guess the way to word that would be that are out of our comfort zone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I said, by having the courage to do that, that builds the confidence that you are the type of person that can be uncomfortable. You talked about this idea of comfort as it is robbing us from fully showing up in life, right? So by doing it in a way, and really that's what exposure therapy is if we're going into the world of therapy. If we're afraid of something, well, to become more comfortable with it, we expose ourselves
So funny.
to that thing in little doses that are manageable. Are we scared? Yes, we are. But we're not totally freaked out. We do it in ways that are manageable and we can recover. And we can feel like, okay, I did it. Okay, I did it. I can show up and do it again, just a little bit more next time. That's all exposure therapy is. So we're really talking about exposure therapy for life right here. That's it.
It's so funny. So I struggle with anxiety. I've fought some battles with anxiety. And I've got a background of wildland firefighting and backcountry hunting. And, obviously I run ultras and all that stuff. And so what's interesting is my anxiety it's presented itself. And I think it's due to probably some PTSD from firefighting in remote, like wilderness adventure settings, which is also what I love the most. So it's been this incredible battle because I'm having the biggest struggle in my life with anxiety, coming at the thing I enjoy the most, which is, wilderness type adventures. So what do? I started running ultras.
Yep.
and now I run 100 miles and I'm like, hey, I can camp 15 miles from the truck. No problem. Cause I know I can run 100 miles. It's so funny because it's so like, if you think about how counterintuitive that, or I don't know how silly that sounds on the surface that, I had to run 100 miles so I could be comfortable camping, with my family 15 miles from town. But it works. It's great. And it's been so fun to see. And, for me, it's been a years long journey. It's not happened overnight at all, but I've been intentional about it. I've known for sure that I don't want this thing to run my life anymore. So I'm going to do what I can do. And I did it I didn't have the science backing it like you've described now. So that's why I was laughing is like, I didn't realize, but I was dipping my toe into exposure therapy for the last 10 years.
That's exactly what you were doing. And it works. It works. And you found out a way to make it work for you. It would not have been as powerful for you if you would have tried to do it in a different way.
Right.
And so that's why finding the right mixture of something that is challenging but also interesting or it matters to us is important. And with a little thought, people are really good at figuring out what that thing is. Everybody's got something that they're a little scared of that they want to be good at. Or they know that they haven't fully shown up in life because, they just, this one thing, right? Well, that's the thing that we want to start tackling. That's the thing that we want to start doing. And is it scary? Yes. But does it feel like thrilling and intoxicating in this beautiful way where we are just consumed by our own greatness? Like, wow, I did that. And it's just this like fist pump, like, moment. And that's the thing that gets us to show up to other areas.
I was going to say, and then it compounds.
Yeah.
And that's what's so cool. Your statement of that confidence is the reward from having the courage is resonating with me in such a profound way, because what I found in my life is that if I've had those courageous moments to show up, sign up for the thing, have the kid, quit the job, whatever. Confidence is the reward I get from that. I'm all piecing it together. It's so cool. And then though I have more confidence to do other courageous things, which then give me more confidence. And there's this like positive feedback loop that sort of starts to happen. The most visible representation of it for me in my life has been running, but that applies to everything, like business, partnerships, marriage, parenting. I mean, you name it, fixing my truck. I mean, whatever. You do things and then your confidence grows and you can do bigger things. How cool to think about that we can actually like grow into having the confidence and the courage to do other bigger, scary things.
Oh, I feel like I learned so much from my teenage son, who is great at using YouTube to figure out anything, right? If he wants to build a car, if he wants to figure out a computer program, whatever. And so I took a play out of his playbook and I was looking to learn this new computer program that I really wanted to master because I just wanted to. Not my area of expertise. I'm actually pretty technical, but I just didn't feel super confident in this thing. And I totally could have just said, hey kid, Will you do this for your mom? But I wanted to be the kind of person that just like did it on my own. And I believed, I at least wanted to try. And I am a perfectionist, so I don't want to try something and fail at it. So that's always my thing that can keep us. And
that's your fear.
Yeah. Most athletes are also perfectionists. We have high attention to detail. We have high regard for precision. We want to do everything perfectly, and when we don't, we are bummed. So it can sometimes be challenging for us to try new things and to risk failure. But the more we do it, the better we get at it. And it's not so scary. And so I had to go a couple rounds with like these YouTube videos to figure out this computer program. But at the end of the day, I did 3 projects. I totally nailed it. I was so proud of myself. And I ended up calling my son and I told him, I said, hey, I want you to know that you modeling this behavior, like where you're just curious and learning new things and you're willing to just like push buttons and fail.
Influenced you.
Like you've taught me how to be more bold in this area. So I want to thank you. And I feel like that is the work that I do every day in athletics is I let students know. I mean, they often tell me thank you, and I tell them right back, thank you. You're inspiring me just like I'm inspiring you. Like this is two-way. This is not top-down. We are doing this thing together. And I think that's what athletes really feel. I think they feel my love. They feel my passion. They don't feel like I am somebody that's got it all figured out and I'm just telling them how to do life. I think they feel like we are coming together as partners to figure out what works for them.
It's so great.
It is so great. I wish that I could have benefited from someone like me when I was in college. As a student athlete, it was tough. I was at Cornell. I was finishing a 5-year architecture program in 4 years because I put myself through college. I'm the first person to go to college in my family. I could not afford to be there 5 years.
For 5, yeah.
So I really had to get down and funky about like finishing this program, right? I'm working a job. I am also an athlete, a 3-sport athlete at Cornell. And I don't even know how I did it now that I look back on it. But the thing is that by continuously showing up and doing hard things, that primed me for showing up for more things and more things and more things. And if I would have had somebody, I mean, I had great friends. I mean, that's where I met, I tell her all the time, she's the first love of my life. My best friend, Brooke, I'm shout out right here. Brooke, she's just my best friend. And I met her at Cornell, and luckily we had each other to just kind of like muddle through because she was also a student athlete. She was on the crew team. But it was hard. I mean, we just didn't have anybody to talk to, and it didn't feel like we could struggle. It felt like we were supposed to have it all figured out. I think one of the biggest things that I do is I give people permission to not have it all figured out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we touched on it. Struggling's the point.
Yeah.
Without struggle, it's not worth it. And what a powerful reminder. Like when things get hard, whether it's in sports or life or relationships, it's like, what did you expect?
Yeah.
Of course it's going to get hard.
So we have the Olympics coming up. And you know how they do those 30 for 30 kind of videos on like an athlete's journey? And so it turns out the reason that we love those videos, like we want to learn about a person, is we want to know what the struggle was. It's not a good story without the struggle. Mm-hmm. When we hear about their depression or their eating disorder or their injury or how they had to fight back from whatever, a death in the family, that's the thing that makes the story great, the struggle. We all want a life without the struggle, and we forget that the struggle is the thing that makes it interesting.
So it makes it beautiful.
It's what makes it worth it. It's what makes it beautiful. It's what makes us proud. If it was easy, like we don't feel proud about things that are super easy for us. We also don't tend to learn a whole lot from things that are super easy for us. We take it for granted. We're like, okay, yeah, moving on to the next thing, right? It's the things that we fail at. It is the things that are challenging to us. It's the things that we feel like, I don't think I can do this. And we maybe reach out for help. Those are the moments that we are most proud of. Those are the things that we walk away from and we are just like, oh, did it. Yes.
It's so like you talk about, those things that you're the most proud of, the harder, and it's almost like correlates the more difficult it is, the more, proud we are. And the fact that the struggle is the point. And, that's why when I was running my 100 miler, I was injured. And anyway, long story short, I was fighting an injury for 80 plus miles of it. Ugh. But I remember distinctly at mile 93, 94, I could see the aid station off on the horizon. Yes. I thought it was going to give me hope. It did not. I remember to my core thinking, this is literally impossible.
Yep.
It's impossible. Yep. And I don't know how to explain it better than that, but I truly felt like it was not possible to finish. But somehow I kept finishing. I kept putting one foot. And now it's changed my perspective of everything. Because it was indescribable. Truly felt like it was impossible. And it wasn't.
Yep.
What else is impossible? Like what else can we push? It's so cool to think about that. And I love that you bring up that, like when we're watching those shows and hearing, if somebody's just born and it's easy, it's not captivating.
Yeah.
It's not a story worth telling. I mean, and it also doesn't exist for what that's worth. But the struggle is why we're so invested in those stories. And again, all the more reason too to like embrace the struggle.
Yep.
It's part of our story, part of our journey.
So one of the interesting things, my husband and I both really enjoy hiking, and we've hiked portions of the John Muir Trail, the Colorado Trail. We like to go out for days or weeks or that sort of thing. And so we're looking at doing a through hike next year.
Awesome.
And so he's watching all of these videos, and I'm sure you've seen them, of like the PCTers, the people that are doing the Continental Divide. And researchers were looking at what, people know that they're going to be hiking 200, 300, 500 miles, right? So it's not like they don't know what they're in for. But what separates the people that are successful and actually finish from the people that embark on this journey and then they just can't? The thing that the people that do, the thing that makes people successful is they prepare for it to be hard.
That is so spot on. When my injury flared up at mile 12, we have on video at mile 12 me telling my wife we're going to fight the leg all day. Yep. I also said I knew it was going to be hard.
Here we are. Let's roll.
This is what we knew was coming. Didn't know it would come this soon.
Yep.
Didn't know it would come this extreme.
Yep.
But here it is.
And that when we prepare for the things that could go wrong or the things that will likely happen. And that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is the belief that what is going to happen to us is beyond our capacity to handle that thing. But when we look at that fear head on and we're like, I've been through something similar before, or, okay, if that happens, what am I going to do? When it does happen, when at mile 12, the leg is hurting, the hip is burning, the knee is, blown out, whatever the deal is, instead of being afraid and like folding like a cheap lawn chair, what do? We go, okay,
here we go.
Here we are. Let's do this.
Well, and same with life and business and relationships and everything. What a good point to take away too, that those that were successful anticipated the struggle.
Absolutely.
We're prepared for it.
Any athlete that I'm working with, any runner that I'm working with, right? Because that's really the world that I know. But this is something that every athlete struggles with, is a lot of the work that we do is preparing for when it's going to be hard and how are you going to support yourself in that moment. That's transferable to life when you're in a job that's hard with a boss that maybe you don't get along with, right? Or you're living in a neighborhood or a city that just is not your place, right? But you've got to be there for a little bit longer because that's just where your life is at the moment. How are you going to handle and support yourself when it's hard? The goal isn't to make it easy. That might not be available to you. If there was any way for you to make your leg not hurt, you would have done it, right? If there was a way for us to get us to not...
I tried everything.
Yeah, to not hurt, we would already be doing it. So we want to scrap that and stop thinking of ourselves as people who just haven't figured it out. No, it's going to be hard. How do we befriend the hard? How do we wrap our arms around the hard and say, okay, let's do this.
Get comfortable with it.
Let's go. Let's
go.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I'm with you, right? There's this great quote that says, life loves to be taken by the lapel and said, I'm with you, kid. Let's go. Right?
Love it.
And I feel like every struggle, every hard thing, every brilliant thing, it's us taking life by the lapel, by the hand, by the shoulder, whatever, and saying, let's go.
It's like the idea that life comes from you instead of life happening to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that life is happening for me, not to me. Mm-hmm. And I really work with people to believe the same thing. Do things happen to us? Yeah. Are we victims of crimes and unfortunate things? Absolutely. But we don't have to fall into a victim mentality. We don't have to give up. That's a choice. And sometimes we do have to struggle with addiction and losses that feel like they are beyond our capacity. But I truly do not believe that God, the universe, I do not believe that we are served emotions or experiences that we can't handle.
Yeah, because we can do hard things.
We can do hard things. Yeah.
Regina, thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Yes.
So when we do this again, we'll carve out more time because I feel like we scratched the surface of so many amazing themes. But I want to thank you so sincerely for not only giving me some of your time today, because I know how valuable it is, and I want you to know how much I appreciate it. But on a larger level, thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for inspiring people. Thank you for removing stigmas. Thank you for inviting people to greatness, as you've said, and all of the things, because we need more of it. And it's so refreshing to get to sit across the table from you, hear your stories, pick your brain. But also, I want you to know how much I appreciate the impact you're having on lives well beyond this. It's profound, and we need more of it. So thank you so much. So I do have.
Thank you, Ben.
I've got a gift for you.
Oh, is this?
This is one of my Inspire by Example shirts. I'm trying to make a movement of people inspiring by example because you are inspiring just by your example. And you need to know that and how important that is to keep doing what you're doing because the world needs it. So please keep it up. And thank you so much for letting me pick your brain for a little bit.
Oh, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you. Thank you for inviting me. This has been a lot of fun. So
It's my pleasure. We'll do it again for sure.
I would love that. Thank you.